In our last video, we talked about why motivation is a lie. Click here to check that out. Today, we're going to be diving into the nuts and bolts of how to overcome inertia and finally build the habits that will move you closer towards your goals.
Because the truth is that for most people, getting started is the hardest part. So, in this episode, we break down a try and true framework for breaking through your sticking point. 1. How to identify what's actually holding you back. 2. How to build the skills you need to move forward. 3. How to set up your environment to maximize your success. 4. How to track your progress. 5. How to rewire your reward system.
Remember, it's not about willpower, it's about building the right habits over a long enough time frame so that you can build the discipline needed to move forward towards your goals. Let's get into it.
The first one, identify your obstacle. The first step towards success is to identify and thoroughly understand what is holding you back from your goals.
In my case, getting in shape was hard because I was afraid of failing. I didn't want to embarrass myself, I had no idea what I was doing, and even light exercise felt like the end of days. And on top of that, and I hate to admit it, I didn't like being around all the super jacked gym bros who were chill and really quite helpful, but they were just a constant reminder of everything that I wanted to be and wasn't, and I didn't like that feeling.
Dan's obstacles were just as psycho-emotional as they were physical, and identifying that allowed him to understand the roots of the problem, so he could begin looking for solutions. The easiest way to start on a difficult project is to strip it down to what we call the minimum viable action, or the smallest change you can make in your routine that will give you the biggest return on your effort.
Right. I knew that getting in shape was important to me, and I also knew that I wasn't ready to go to the gym yet. So I focused on the little things that I could actually do, that were the least difficult, and that I could commit to. So I started by walking 30 minutes around my neighborhood 3 times a week. After a few weeks, I started to cut down on the junk food and the desserts. And after a few more weeks, I prolonged my walks a little. And after a few weeks after that, I started to order regular sized meals instead of automatically opting for the supersized option. And so on and so forth.
Establishing a starting point is probably the most important part of the journey. And if you have a long, overwhelming journey ahead of you, start small. Look for the easiest, most actionable things that you can do and are willing to do and do them regularly. Dan didn't start up by training 6 days a week like he does now, meal prepping every day and managing his calories and macros. He started off small and slowly built good habits one at a time over the months and the years.
I really can't emphasize this enough. You don't have to know what you're doing to start. Identify one or two habits that you can commit to and just hammer away at those until they become part of your routine. You can always slowly build the additional skills you need to level up as you're leveling up.
Number 2, skill before strength. Speaking of skills, this is where a lot of people get stuck. A simple YouTube or Google search can be enough to overwhelm you into inaction. If we are sticking to our fitness example, it probably took Dan a couple of years or so to learn the basics of weight training, tracking calories, and mastering food choices. It was messy and it was confusing, and he got it more wrong than he did right. But he was making progress, and that was the key.
The important thing is to be willing to learn and to keep learning. The more skills you acquire, the more confidence you will build and the more momentum you will gain. Go down the YouTube rabbit hole. With a little trial and a lot of error, you will eventually find the right creators for you.
Remember that the journey itself is the whole point. Perfection isn't the goal. It's not. Progress is. It's better to start badly and to improve over time than it is to wait for the right moment. Start now and suck at it until you get good.
And again, we know that it sounds cliche, but it is true. Losing the weight, buying the new clothes, and getting positive feedback from the people around me is what rewired my reward system and ironically made me fall in love with the process.
Number 3, managing your environment. By doing this, you can maximize your chances of success.
Here's where things get really tactical because all the progress in the world isn't going to matter if you fall back into bad habits, which is unfortunately very easy to do if you don't set up the right guardrails around you.
In practical terms, managing your environment simply means identifying and actively avoiding the things in your life that you know will take you away from your goals. In Dan's case, it's simple things like not keeping danger foods in the house because if we do, he'll eat them. He'll eat everything. He eat my food too. Even after all these years, the part of him that wants to overeat is still there. So we make it as easy as possible for him to avoid falling back into these habits by limiting the temptation.
Yeah, it's a lot harder to fall into temptation when you remove it. To the best of your ability, anyways. Not having danger foods in the house means that if I'm feeling a little cheaty, I either have to order something in or physically go downstairs to the convenience store, which doesn't eliminate the temptation entirely, but at least it adds a couple of layers of inconvenience to the process and reduces the chances that I will fall off the wagon.
We also avoid drinking excessively in order to avoid late night cravings and weekend hangover filled binges. Alcohol doesn't agree with Dan anymore, so on the rare occasions that he does drink, he ends up feeling terrible for 2 or 3 days, and out of the window go both his exercise and his diet. Comment below if you can relate.
Another major key to success that not many people talk about is to surround yourself, if you can, with people that will help you keep on track. I'm talking about accountability partners, coaches, supportive friends, mentors. Now, I'm super lucky that Thao has been nothing short of 100% in helping me stick to my goals. She preps my meals, she calls me out when I'm being an idiot, but also makes room for cheat meals when she knows that I could use one.
Yeah, having a strong support group is a massive win. We are blessed in that our friends know and accept our eating and drinking habits and never pressure us to have just one drink or go out for pizza. They know how we roll and just let us be.
The list of environmental variables is endless, but the main takeaway is that you have the power to create distance between yourself and your stumbling blocks. For me, it's all about making things as easy and convenient as possible so that I can stick to my plan. My gym is in my building. I train early in the morning to avoid the crowds. I avoid driving by bakeries. I check restaurant menus before we go out to eat. Anything and everything to make my life as easy and as stress free as possible.
It goes without saying that Dan's situation isn't typical, and so his web of habits has to be on the extreme side. But this is just to illustrate how he manages his environment so that he can stay on top of things, because we know from experience that when he begins to slack off in these areas, he falls back into his old habits, gains weight, begins to feel bad about himself, and then risks spiraling out of control.
Literally what happened during COVID, but we don't talk about that. But what we do talk about is number 4, tracking your progress and celebrating it. But the opposite is also true. You can spiral upwards where your progress fuels the confidence which continues to drive your success.
It's important to have medium and long term goals, but it's also important to keep track of and celebrate short term achievements.
Think about the millions of people whose New Year's resolution is to get in shape, and the 90% that will spend ungodly amounts of money for a year's worth of gym memberships only to stop going by February. It's not the long term goal that will keep you on track, it's the little milestones that you set for yourself along the way.
That's why keeping track of what you're doing is important. If the results keep coming, keep doing what you're doing. But if they're not, then you have to go back to the drawing board to see what changes have to be made to your habit structure so that you can continue to move forward.
I think it's also important to celebrate your wins, even the small ones, even the imperfect ones. There are weeks when life just gets in the way and I don't manage to get to the gym at all, or days when I slip up and I eat 4 to 5,000 calories. But even on those days, I have the option to feel like a failure, or I could look back and compare myself to who I used to be and look at this in the context of missing a week of training is better than skipping a month or a year or eating 5,000 calories a day every day. A win is a win.
So, to wrap this up, overcoming inertia isn't about waiting for motivation to strike. It's about building small wins into habits that stick.
It's not about being perfect. It's about being consistent enough to move in the right direction and doing it for long enough that it changes the way you see yourself.
If you're stuck right now, ask yourself, what skill am I missing? What's one small habit I could stick to this week? And what could I change in my environment to make it easier?
And if this helped, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe, and drop a comment below. What is one tactical change you're making this week to get unstuck?
Because the truth is, you don't need to be strong to start. You just need to start small and keep going until the momentum builds itself. That's all for today. Until next time. Bye.